The inaugural Pan-Caribbean Peace Conference will be held on October 6, the 41st anniversary of the Cubana aircraft bombing. This was announced earlier this week by social activist David Commish-Chong. The event is an initiative of Network in Defense of Humanity, the Caribbean chapter of the International Network in Defense of Humanity. The Human Rights Network was co-founded by the late Cuban President Fidel Castro and his Venezuelan counterpart Hugo Chavez. Mr. Commish-Chong, who coordinates the Caribbean chapter, shared details about the conference.
The theme of the conference is resisting nuclear and environmental disaster, building peace in our Caribbean. And at the center of that theme is this notion that has been bandied about for some time now. This notion that the Caribbean must be a zone of peace. So we have heard this concept for some time, but what precisely does it mean? What do we mean when we say that the Caribbean is to be a zone of peace? So we want to give concrete flesh to this idea. In a sense as well, this conference is yet another attempt by us to bring the Caribbean together around a people's movement. And you know, if we really think about it, the number one thing that we need to be doing in Barbados and in the Caribbean is really mobilizing our people behind a people-centered, progressive agenda of peace and development. Think about it. We Caribbean people, when we look at who we are, where we have come from, the masses of our populations in the Caribbean are all people who have come from a history of racial and class oppression. 90% of our population. And therefore, we in the Caribbean, we don't need rocket science to tell us what kind of developmental path we should be pursuing. The only developmental path that could be relevant to people with our history, our unique history of racial and class oppression, is a developmental path that is people-centered, that is based on developing a welfare state, uplifting the social indicators of our people, and building an economy based on our people